Hello everyone and welcome back to Movie On. Today we're going to do a review of the movie named The Crush from 1993. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care, and I hope you enjoy it. The movie opens with the main character, Nick Elliott, looking for a rentable place. He checks out multiple apartments and rooms, but none of them seem suitable for him. Unable to find a suitable apartment in Seattle, Washington, journalist Nick Elliott drives into the suburbs, where he almost runs into a girl skating. The girl then skates away into a house where he sees a sign advertising an available guest house belonging to frequent business travelers Liv and Cliff Forrester. He goes into their house and chats with Liv. He tells her that he saw the signboard outside and was wondering if the guest house is available. She tells him that it is and asks him what he does for a living and what sort of place he's looking for. He tells her that he works mostly from home and is looking for a peaceful and quiet place, that he needs some calm right now. She tells him that this place will suit him because she's always in court and her husband Cliff is busy at the airport. He sees the guest house and tells her that he'll take it. After quickly accepting the property, he begins work renovating, and his presence attracts the attention of the Forresters' 14-year-old daughter, Adrian. Adrian spies on Nick by hiding behind the fence wall and sends her friend, Cheyenne, to check up on him. Cheyenne enters Nick's guest house quietly and sees him fixing and renovating the place. Nick, without looking, asks to identify herself, friend or foe. She replies with shyness that it depends. Nick asks her name, and she tells it's Cheyenne, and runs away. Nick goes to the window and sees Adrian spying on him, and she notices it too and hides. Cheyenne reports back to Adrian that he was fine and cool and says he's old in an attractive way. On his first day as a writer at Peak Magazine, Nick is chastised for showing up late and assigned to work on a dead-end story on Robert Levansky, who allegedly stole a lot of money. The next day, Nick finds a lead on his dead-end story when he talks to the chauffeur of Robert Levansky. At night, Nick is at his place smoking and working on his story when Adrian comes to his door and asks him what he's doing. He invites her in and tells her that she wouldn't like it. Adrian says, "Try me." He asks her if she knows Robert Levansky, and she asks if he's talking about the arbitrage guy who stole tons of money while wearing his cap. He corrects her and he says allegedly stole. He says that he got in contact with Levansky's chauffeur, who told him that he regularly drove Levansky up to a house in Knollwood, and he thinks that Levansky had a friend. Adrian sits on a chair and asks Nick in a naughty way if that friend of Levansky is his lover. He says, yeah, he thinks that too. Adrian takes Nick's cigar and starts smoking. Nick asks her if she's actually 14 or not. She says she's almost 15. He says, "Isn't it way past your bedtime?" and takes the cigar from her. She returns the next morning while Nick is in the shower to give him a gift, and invites him to her parents' party later that week. At the office, Nick reads his article that just came in. He realizes that some of the article was changed and tells his boss, Michael, to let him recheck before publishing, but his boss says nothing is wrong with it and he likes Nick's writing style and thinking. At night, Nick reluctantly attends the party that Adrian invited him to. He meets guests, and Liv introduces him to her husband, Adrian's father, Cliff. At the party, he hears the piano and finds out it was Adrian who's playing a very fine piece of music. Feeling out of place among the high society guests, Nick seeks out Adrian. She tells him that she knew he would come. He smiles, and she asks how his article went. Nick realizes that it was her who made the changes to his article, and that's why it felt very wrong. She reveals she snuck into the gatehouse and rewrote the article that earned praise from Nick's boss. He tells her that this was not right, that she can't go around sneaking into people's houses and messing with their stuff. She gets a bit sad, so he tells her politely that he does not feel good to be bested by a 14-year-old. She says, "Okay, but can you take me on a drive right now? I have to show you something." He hesitates because it's quite dark, but he takes her anyway. They go for a ride in his car and stop at a lighthouse. There she tells him that she's quite lonely and she does not have any friends because her parents made her skip 2 grades and now everyone thinks she's weird. He comforts her and tells her that she's not weird and he's her friend. She then tells him that she likes him and kisses him. He stops her and realizes that this is not right because she is half his age. He's 28 and she's only 14, and they both take off. The next day, Nick becomes distracted by Adrian's constant looming presence. He strikes up a friendship with his coworker, Amy Maddock. During a barbecue one weekend, Amy becomes concerned about Adrian's obvious crush on Nick. After receiving a cryptic telephone call from Adrian, Nick searches for her inside the main house. In her room, he finds a heart-shaped pillow embroidered with his and Adrian's initials, and hides in the closet while she undresses for a shower, unaware that Adrian knows he's watching her. On his way out of the house, he runs into Cliff, who asks him to help carry some boxes to the attic. There, Cliff shows off the carnival carousel he has reconstructed as a childhood toy for Adrian. One afternoon, Nick approaches Adrian while she's swinging, and tells her that he wants to talk to her about something that's a bit awkward. She asks him what it is. He confronts her and tells her that he really likes her and she can count on him if she needs anything, but only as a friend, because she's just not suitable for him in his eyes or society's, because she's only a 14-year-old teenager and he's a 28-year-old journalist. She, without getting offensive or sad, reminds him that if he thinks they both did not have a shot together, then why did he kiss her at the lighthouse the other night? He gets a bit furious and tells her that the kiss was nothing but a mistake due to mixed signals. She then tells him if that kiss was a mistake, then what about the time when he hid in her closet and watched her get undressed? That leaves Nick speechless and he walks away. But then Adrian provokes him by asking him if he's ever had sex with a virgin, and she knows that he wants to. Nick gets very angry and makes it very clear for her and says to just avoid any confusion or misunderstandings or any mixed signals. There's nothing between them, and nothing is going to happen because she's too young for him, and he leaves with disturbed silence. Later, we see Nick in an alley with his friend Amy Maddock, taking her to show that he bought a new car, and when they get to the car and remove the car cover, poor Nick finds out that the bonnet of the car has been scratched up by someone with the name Cocksucker. Nick confronts the Forresters about the suspicion that Adrian vandalized his car, but the girl denies responsibility and her parents believe her over Nick. Afterward, Adrian's only friend, Cheyenne, asks to speak with Nick after her horse riding lesson about Adrian, and says that it's very important. Suspicious, Adrian improperly mounts Cheyenne's saddle, causing her to fall and break her arm while riding a horse. Nick waits for Cheyenne in the backyard, but she doesn't appear. Instead, Adrian does. He tells her that he thought she was Cheyenne, and he was waiting to meet her, and Adrian accuses him that he now likes Cheyenne. Nick tells her not to be so ridiculous. She fills Nick in about Cheyenne's little accident at her horse riding lessons, and now she's in the hospital. While preparing an important work presentation, Nick brings his floppy disk to work, which is completely empty, and he tells his boss Michael that he has more copies of his presentation at home. When he reaches home and checks his computer, he finds out that his entire data from his computer has been erased, and he has nothing to show at the office for his presentation. He calls Amy and tells her that all of his data from his computer has been swiped, and he's pretty sure it was Adrian who was behind it. He then asks Amy to do a favor at the office and cover for him for his presentation, and he tells Amy that he's going to rewrite all his work and he'll be moving out. After the call, Nick discovers a secret room in the garage that contains a candlelit shrine, picture of Nick, and chart papers filled with the words, "I love you, Nick," that Adrian built for him. Realizing that Adrian is becoming a big problem for him, Nick seals the garage door with nails and pieces of wood. Vigorously attempting to rewrite his work, Nick ignores Adrian's dozens of telephone calls and gets his locks replaced. He completes his rewrite and makes arrangements to move to a new apartment. He tells the landlady that he needs to move in this week, but the landlady informs him that the new property will not be available until the following week. So Nick goes back to his current place to pack his bags and stuff. As his relationship with Amy turns romantic, she asks Nick out on a date at their boss Michael's benefit. Nick agrees, and they both make love, and the next moment they're both sleeping together, and in the middle of the night, angry and jealous Adrian breaks into Nick's house and sees Amy and Nick sleeping together. A few moments later, Nick wakes up because of Adrian's tantrum in his kitchen, chopping lemons with the cleaver as hard as she can, and when Nick rushes at her place to see what's going on, Adrian smiles in a heartbroken way and says, "I'm making lemonade." The next morning, Adrian meets with Amy and asks her about what she's doing at Nick's last night. Amy gets a bit frustrated and tells Adrian that one day when she's all grown up and will be in a real relationship, she'll realize that Nick was just a crush, or she probably won't even remember him. Adrian pretends to be fascinated by Amy and tells her she wants to be like her, but Amy is smart and realizes the situation and tells Adrian to go play. The woman dismisses Adrian for asking questions about their sex life. Later, Adrian locks Amy inside her private dark room and fills the ventilation fans with wasps, sending her to the hospital. Luckily, there was a window in her room, and Amy throws a bottle at the window, breaking it and letting the wasps escape. At her horse riding competition, Adrian gloats to Cheyenne that Amy's accident brought her closer to Nick. She tells Cheyenne that Nick will be coming to her competition, but he doesn't show up. She looks for him, but doesn't see him anywhere. Afterward, she barges in on a fundraiser for Peak Magazine and causes a disturbance by pretending to be Nick's bitter girlfriend. And when Nick tells her to leave him, she slaps him in front of everyone and creates a scene. Nick takes her to the side and aggressively tells her to stay away from him and stop acting crazy. She completely ignores his words and tries to hug and kiss him again and again, but Nick does not let her, so she starts screaming loudly. Nick tells her that she's insane and a nut. He leaves the scene, but Nick's luck worsens when he discovers that Adrian has sabotaged his new apartment lease by telling the landlady he's a drug dealer. Upon arriving home, Nick gets arrested for sexually assaulting a minor. While the police arrest him and take him to their car, the police and ambulances take Adrian and her parents. Adrian's father, Cliff, sees Nick and jumps on him and starts choking him, and the police get him off of Nick. Adrian tells the police that he beat her again and again and would not take no for an answer, and the interrogating officer interrogates Nick. He denies and states that all of this is a lie and she's the one who's actually crazy, but the cops won't believe him because she's 14 years old. The interrogating officer tells Nick that they have evidence that she was raped. Nick theorizes that Adrian orchestrated the claim by stealing a used condom from his trash bin, but even the police or his boss Michael refuse to believe him over Adrian. Before he can be formally charged, Nick posts his bail and returns home and packs to leave. Suddenly, Cheyenne arrives and tells Nick that she believes him and Adrian is lying. She tells Nick about Rick, a camp counselor Adrian poisoned after he rejected her romantic advances. They both connect the dots that Adrian was behind Amy's accident because she knew a lot about wasps. Nick tells her that they know Adrian is behind everything, but they don't know how to prove it. Cheyenne tells Nick that there might be a way. She says that she's seen Adrian's diary, and she knows that Adrian writes everything in it. She tells Nick that the diary might be at her house. Nick tells her that he'll have the detective check it tomorrow, because he can't go within 100 feet of Adrian or her house. He tells Cheyenne to leave because he has been in enough trouble already. After Cheyenne leaves, she sneaks into Adrian's main house and searches for the diary, but Adrian also sneaks into the house and holds her captive in the attic. While packing the rest of his stuff, Nick hears the carousel music from across the yard. He crosses the property in search of Cheyenne. He ascends to Adrian's room, decorated with another shrine and his only picture with his late girlfriend that she stole, and a note reading, "Please forgive me." Adrian pops up from behind and accuses him that this is what it takes you to get up here. He asks her where is Cheyenne, but she accuses him of having an affair with her. Nick, sick of her shit, completely ignores her and continues his search for Cheyenne. Adrian attacks him with a gardening tool and pushes him over the balcony. Moments before she can kill him, however, Adrian's father, Cliff, arrives home in search of Adrian, and the girl flees to the attic. Nick revives himself and slowly follows Adrian, looking for Cheyenne. Meanwhile, Cliff is trying to break into the house because the door is completely locked. Nick reaches the attic and finds Cheyenne tied up to the carousel. Adrian jumps from the shadows and again attacks Nick, screaming until Cliff reaches them. Cliff attacks Nick, again thinking he was attacking his daughter, whereas this time Nick was just defending himself and protecting Cheyenne. Adrian knocks her father unconscious, yelling, "Leave him alone," and Nick punches her in the face, sending her flying across the room. Nick stops the carousel to get Cheyenne down from there, and the scene cuts to Adrian in a mental hospital, still writing about Nick. Sometime later, Nick moves into a new apartment with Amy. Amy arrives home to see Nick sleeping on the couch, and tells him that he missed the meeting and hands him the mail that came in today. Nick checks the mail and has a terrified look on his face, because all of the mail is from Adrian, writing him apologetic letters from a mental institution, where she has developed a new crush on her sympathetic doctor, implying that the vicious cycle with Adrian's obsession to a potential new boyfriend/victim will start all over again. To watch more explanations of these kinds of movies, click on the videos on your screen, and don't forget to let me know how you feel about today's video in the comments down below. And at last I will say, stay safe, stay well, thanks.